Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge. In today's episode, so my best friend was being a prick and his sister really liked me. Thieving coke fiend gets what he deserves, right in front of him, and he doesn't even know it. Using speakerphone in the toilet in public. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. So my best friend was being a prick and his sister really liked me. I posted this in a thread, but I will add some juicy details here to this subreddit because it's pretty small right now. So I was friends with this guy who never knew when to shut his mouth, would constantly make fun of people, insult people, and was just a fucking smartass. He just never seemed to answer to any threats, because he knew I loved him, and wouldn't physically hurt him. So let's call him Andy. Now Andy had a sister Bianca who was a year older than him, and she really seemed to like me. Andy was not happy about that. Now Bianca liked me but usually only acted on it when we were drinking. She was pretty, had a very nice body, but was kind of weird. We all went to a lot of parties together, and that always involved heavy drinking. I was about 17 when this started happening. Every time me and Bianca would get drunk we would start messing around. Usually just hand stuff, grinding, and lots of perverted stuff. At first I would hide it from Andy, but then at one party I was pretty pissed at him, so I kind of flirted with her when he was around. He asked me to stop and find someone else because that's not what brothers do or we. I reminded him of other things brothers don't do to each other, which he did. Later that night most people left, but me, Andy, Bianca, and a few other fun people were still there. Someone offered me a shot, and I said I'd do it off of Bianca's body. She laid down, pulled up her shirt, and I did the shot and smiled at Andy before licking off drops that spilled. Now by this time Andy was very pissed at me and decided that the best way to get back at me would be to continue being a dick, but this time trying to humiliate me with pranks, false stories, I don't think anyone bought them, and he would continue telling people how I wasn't a good bro, etc. Now I had a good reputation of being one of the best friends anyone could ask for, and it was hard to get on my nerves. This kid was very good at making me want to kill. So I continued the messing around with his sister at any chance we got when we were in front of him. It got to the point where I was excited to see her only when he was around, and we even started talking about how fun it was to piss him off. We never had sex, we were both virgins at the time, but we did some nasty stuff. I usually liked making her moan slightly just for him to hear and watch him turn red. This kept on escalating, but then I had a better plan. I stopped for a while, me and Andy ended up shaking hands and things were good. However, after a few days or so Andy would start being a dick again. I warned him to stop, but I guess he was convinced me and Bianca were done for good. Nope. We organized a small camping trip. Just me, Andy, Bianca, and a few of our closest friends. Now the camping trip started off great. We got there early in the morning, set up camp, and went out for a swim and to fish. Andy was cranky and he started being a dick. Everyone kept on telling him to quit being such a little bitch and relax. That didn't stop him. We came back and started drinking and having fun. Eventually we were all sitting in a circle around the fire just sharing stories and laughing. Bianca sat in between my legs and Andy was sitting pretty close to our right. He looked pretty pissed, and when it got really dark I started to put my hands up her shirt and just started playing with her boobies. It was nice. Now he finally noticed, got up and yelled, "God damn it, get your fucking hands off of my sister, and you Bianca stop being such a slut/whore." So things got a little quiet and awkward, so we just sat separately after that. That would have been just fine, but then Andy started boasting about how I was afraid of him, and some other really fucked up shit. I continued drinking and kept my mouth shut, but my friend took Andy aside and basically told him to watch his fucking mouth from now on. So most people went to sleep in their tents, then Bianca left, and it was just me, Andy, and another dude. It felt pretty awkward for Andy, so he went to sleep, and then I ended up alone. Now I love sitting by the fire till the crack of dawn, so I was just sitting there drinking beers, smoking and watching stars. Still pretty pissed at Andy. But then his sister got up, I walked her to the bathroom, and then we got back to the fire where we started messing around. We were very close to Andy's tent, so Bianca was trying to be quiet. Then it got pretty hot and heavy, and she stopped paying attention to her surroundings. That's when I started to secretly throw rocks and other things at Andy's tent. I knew he was awake, but I had to make sure. I threw Bianca on the ground and started finger blasting her while using my other hand to speed dial Andy. I even heard his phone vibrate, and he picked up. Bianca couldn't help her heavy breathing and moaning, so she didn't hear the tent door unzip. I did, and I got ready. Andy realized what was happening, probably thought more of it too, and just went after me. He picked up a big stick and just started chasing me. Now I was tipsy, horny and very amused. It was difficult to run away from him, while I was drunk, had a hard-on and couldn't stop laughing, but at the same time knowing that I have 40 pounds on him and 3 to 4 inches. I let him chase me around for a while before stopping and wrestling him to the ground. Now I don't remember exactly what I said to him when I had him pinned down, but it was something along the lines of, "We talked about this, Andy. You were supposed to stop being a dick to me, and I was supposed to leave your sister alone. You didn't stop, and I gave you many chances. Now can you be a good boy and admit that you deserved all of this and promise me you'll stop?" He was pissed, but eventually calmed down, and after a bunch of beers we shook hands and settled our differences. Well, sort of. I slept for about 2 hours in my chair, woke up, restarted the fire, and cleaned up. I started making breakfast just as all our friends started waking up, so I made breakfast for everyone. And since we didn't want to waste food, they woke everyone up to finish off the open containers that I used. It was awkward as shit, and Andy made sure that for the rest of the trip me and Bianca were not alone together, and he stayed up with me for the next 2 nights to make sure. Now I know that I may have been an asshole for using his sister to get back at him, but 2 things first. She liked me as a friend, and didn't want a relationship or anything like that. She liked being pleased, and she loved the fact that Andy hated it. Second thing, turns out that she came out a few months later. So yeah, that's that. Thieving coke fiend gets what he deserves, right in front of him, and he doesn't even know it. Intro. I believe this is pro-revenge material because of the fact that I got even and he was, and still is, none the wiser. If this breaks any sub-rules or belongs somewhere else in another revenge-based, regular, petty etc., or also belongs there, please let me know. Characters. Me/I equals, you guessed it. Fiend equals friend that I used to hang out/use with, and titular character. Buddy equals another using friend at the time. Backstory and info. I am currently in recovery. In the past I used a wide variety of psychoactives, usually several at once, damn near daily for half of my life, about 15 years. I no longer associate with anyone in the story. This took place around 2007-ish, I was either in grade 12 or recently graduated from high school in Canada. The betrayal. Scene, Fane's room, in his parents' house. The night of hanging out with Fane and doing coke was nearing the end, and there was 2 lines remaining, 1 each, which we were about to use before I headed home. We had equally split on the coke, and as is tradition, we alternated who went first each time, so it would be fair. Fane was holding a book, Knowledge is Power, with the 2 lines busted up. As he nose vacuumed his line, I was awaiting my turn to sniff my share of the devil's dandruff. What happened next was a combination of unexpected, an enormous breach of etiquette, and a colossal dick move. He looks up, his gaze meeting my eyes, as I anticipated in passing me the book, and proceeded to snort my line. Not just any line, the last and only remaining one. I was in a state of disbelief. From that moment on, I knew I would do whatever it took to be made whole again. It wasn't the $10 cost, it was the principle. The complete lack of giving a fuck, in terms of doing the right thing. Before I even left his house, I swore to myself that he would pay, hopefully exponentially. The only thing better than revenge, other than getting pussy, was to do so right in front of him, with him being none the wiser. The revenge plan. My co-conspirator in this situation was my pal, Buddy. We told Fane, who knew I was not thrilled about his actions described above, but was unaware of my lingering craving for justice, that we were gonna party it up the following weekend. My parents were going to be gone, and the plan was to each contribute a bunch of money to pick up a somewhat decent amount of coke for the day, to split among ourselves, since drugs plus over a decade of time equals good memory. I would guess it was probably 4 to 7 grams total. There were several dealers, but we insisted the best deal was from my friend Buddy's plug, Contact. We, Buddy and I, picked up the product and headed to my place for a bit of pre-party chemistry. This was our plan. We began by separating around a half gram from the main baggie. I then went to the medicine cabinet and pulled out some extra-strength Tylenol pills, not Tylenol 2 or 3 with codeine, just regular old acetaminophen/paracetamol, 500 mg per each white and elongated oval-shaped pill. We then crushed the Tylenol, removing as much of the other coating as possible until we were left with a white powder, which obviously looked and tasted much different, red horrible. We mixed in a few of these crushed pills with the half gram of coke and mixed it thoroughly. The buddy guy and I were left with one larger bag of many grams of coke, as well as one smaller bag with a few grams of Tylenol cut with coke. The secret trick. Now I know what many of you might be thinking. Anyone who has tried coke a few times should be able to tell the difference between cocaine plus the normal cutting agents versus Tylenol, which contains traces of cocaine plus normal cutting agents. How in the hell did you get him to take the fake stuff, and how did he not immediately know something was not right after one line? It was entirely based on the fact that many drug users, fiend especially, can be kinda greedy. As I said previously, drug user tradition dictates that when splitting a bag of drugs, using together, there is a rotation system for who takes the first line each time. Fiend arrived to my place and was quite happy when our guy buddy showed him the big bag that was all for the three of us. We told Fiend that since we rotated who chose the first line each time around, it didn't matter if Buddy make the lines each time, because he would try and make it even since we switched the order up. I would distract Fiend as Buddy set the line up every time. Buddy would make 2 lines with the proper stuff, and then make the Tylenol line about 10% larger than the rest. The beauty of this plan was Fiend probably thought these guys are so dumb, even when they get first and second pick they are leaving me the biggest one. So not only did we not have to consume any of the nasty stuff, he was convinced, and even agreed, to the good quality since in his mind Buddy and I were doing the same stuff as him and not saying anything bad about it. The result. Not only did Fiend never realize, even to this day, unless he's a Redditor, that he got screwed over, he most likely thought he was getting a better deal than us. In the end, his continued greed which caused him to steal my $10 line, it allowed myself and Buddy to each do around $100 worth of his coke, right in front of him, as he laughed inside thinking we were dumb for choosing the smaller lines. I had to hold in laughter as he agreed with us every time Buddy, and I said wow, this is some good stuff. If you made it here, I hope you enjoyed my story. And Fiend, if you are reading this, I hope you also have managed to escape the clutches of addiction, since you were a decent guy when you weren't drunk and coked out. I hope you forgive me, cause I sure quickly forgave your theft against me. After you treated Buddy and I to a fun evening. Using speaker phone in the toilet in public. At the University of Iowa, there is a large fundraiser called Dance Marathon where college students sponsor a child who had cancer and dance for 24 hours. The party can get fairly crazy, and the families who come to join the dancers can be pretty cool. However, last year, I noticed a new family who had 2 kids, one who looked to be about 10 and one who looked to be about 5. The mom seemed a little self-centered from what I could tell, always budging through lines for her kids and such, but the dad was a whole nother story. He was very large and had a mildly inappropriate t-shirt that looked straight out of a strip club. He was constantly budging and pushing through the crowds, and he was constantly yelling at people for getting in his way or being too close to him. At one point, he sat at the table down 1 row from my family and saved the entire table, which was meant for the college students, for the 4 of them. He started hoarding all the food and candy for his kids, and even walked over to other tables and stole food. Later during the night, the junk food and such was really getting to my stomach, so I rushed to the bathroom. I opened the door, immediately hearing someone talking very loudly. I immediately recognized it as him. He had his phone on speaker, and I could tell it was him calling about something to do with his insurance. From what I could hear, the person on the phone was being very polite, and was taking their time. Meanwhile, this big douche was sitting on the toilet screaming at them. I then realized now was the time to take my revenge for everyone he had been inconveniencing. I let it rip. I had the longest, loudest shit I've ever had in a public restroom. The man started to get nervous, as the insurance person was asking for him to move somewhere private. I could hear how embarrassed he was. I then loudly groaned and said out loud, they really need to put more air freshener in this bathroom. The man immediately said to the phone, I'll call you back, but before he hung up, I flushed, washed my hands, and instead of using the paper towels, used 2 of the jet dryers for both my hands to make as much noise as possible. As I left the bathroom, I heard the ding from when you hang up a call, and I walked away with a smirk on my face. I have never felt so accomplished. I told a few of my fellow dancers, and they all thought it was hilarious, since they noticed him being rude too. I didn't see the man for the rest of the night. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.